It's an interesting one with mental health, really, and counseling, because the way that society looks at mental health has changed, and there has been a lot of progress. But on the other hand, you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to counselors and therapists and mental health professionals, it's all about how invested they actually are. I liken it to, for instance, this podcast. And the reason for that is that people have said over the years that I'm a good interviewer. They've said, oh, I'm a good conversationist and stuff like that. And that was a lovely compliment to get. But when I thought about why do people say that, I looked at the nature of my investment in the show versus, say, other people who've done similar shows or just like the top shows that are out there. Like, your investment in a conversation is everything. And of course, when it comes to counseling and mental health, the person has come in, paid you money, given you their time, and is like, hey, help me fix this, or at least help me see a different way. But the key thing is obviously they're wanting to be heard. And obviously over time, you get to know this person, you get to understand their insecurities, their past, what they're dealing with, etc. But that might be like the only time they ever actually have someone sit, listen, and care. And I've heard so many stories over the years. I've had bad experiences myself. I know a lot of people that have had bad experiences, and it always comes down to, the person just not being invested. For example, I was watching some old, that's of all references, some old GTA 5 videos of the story. And in the story, and again, it's supposed to be, for context, it's supposed to be a bit of a joke and an irony, but there are elements of truth within it. The main character is obviously narcissistic, and he's got a lot of mental health issues, and he's destructive and all of these things. But he genuinely needs therapy. And on some level, we're taught with the story that his therapist is trying to help and has helped him on some level, but is also not invested, only cares about the money, and makes that clear. And that's kind of the running joke throughout the story whenever you sort of go to the counselor or go to the therapist. But it's interesting because it is a comment on how counseling can be good and counseling can be bad, depending on your investment and what you actually give to it. And it's interesting as well that you say that you've had therapy yourself. We've seen that in popular culture as well. For anyone who's ever watched The Sopranos, a lot of the storyline around that is that the main character is a mob boss is receiving therapy from a counselor, and they could not be more different if they tried. And she's also getting therapy, but from other counselors. And I've always found that interesting because you know what the other person is doing because you do it as well, and you're trying to listen, but you're also like, are they saying that and just doing the techniques, or are they actually trying to help me? So let's talk about that for a second. Like, receiving therapy when you're a therapist, like, how do you let go? How do you enable that to be effective?
Well, that's a good question, and to be honest, I'm not sure I even have an answer for it, because for a while, I was seeking therapy for a time after I'd already become a counselor, and there were times that it was effective in my earlier days, and I was able to learn a significant amount from it. But after a while, what's unfortunately happened is I became so invested in learning about how the mind works and how society works how minds work in combination with each other, that whenever I would present an idea for analysis with my therapist, I was effectively relaying to the therapist the analysis that I'd already conducted of myself, and the therapist wasn't able to add anything to it. So it can sound pretentious, and honestly, I really wish that wasn't the case. I wish that sometimes if I had a problem, that there was a source greater than me. Well, there is. I'm sure there is out there, but I wish it was easier for me to find somebody who can provide reflection on me personally that could then help me grow. But it's just been hard. It's been hard to find, because I find myself already by instinct just doing the analysis myself. And that's one of the reasons why I engage in endeavors such as engaging in deep conversations with friends, or what I do on my podcast, where I'm actively seeking guests that have very different perspectives on very specific subjects, because then I have an opportunity to actually ask, if this is my view, what's your counter perspective to that? And that, to me, I find incredibly enlightening, because I hear other people's perspectives. But I also find reflecting on the work that I do with my clients and thinking about how they view the world and what they're learning. Often, if I have a personal problem, I think about a particular client and ask, if this client had this problem, as I do, what would I advise them, or what reflection would I make with them? And often that becomes insightful. But seeking therapy, after a while of me being a therapist, I don't want to discourage therapists from seeking therapy, because you absolutely should. Maybe it was just misfortune on my part that I didn't happen to see the therapist who were quite attuned to me in the right way. And chemistry is a big part of it, chemistry, so to speak. For me personally, it became difficult. But then I'm also in a fortunate position where I have been able to largely, I don't have a perfect life, but I've been able to overcome a lot of the problems that were associated with my own mental illness. So it's a complicated situation, but I wouldn't say that that's the end of the line. I think my case is just something of an anomaly. So to anyone out there who's thinking of seeking therapy, it's certainly worth it, but it can be a journey to find the person who is right for you, because chemistry is a big part of it.